Welcome to The Wizard and the Bruiser. I'm your filthy, naughty wizard, Holden McNeely.
And I'm your slick, greasy bruiser, Jake Young.
And we are here to talk about episode 3 of our 3-part series on Legend of Zelda. Jake, how excited are you right now from 1 to fucking you could give a big shit?
On a scale of 1 to you could give a big shit, I could fucking dick my own butthole.
Fantastic. That took the words right out of my mouth, Jake. This is going to be such a great. I mean, we're talking about so many great games today. So let's just get right into it, right, Jake? Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't even, you heard all about The Legend of Zelda on Nintendo. You heard all about Link to the Past on Super Nintendo. We did a whole effing episode on Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And now we're going to talk about one of the most well-known games in the Zelda franchise. Of course, I'm talking about Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages.
Oh, for the Game Boy Color.
2001. Bow, bow, bow.
Whoa, is this game in full color or just like maybe 5 at a time?
Motherfucker, we're talking about 4 seasons. That's 4 different colors. You fun bitch. Developed by Flagship. Flagship?
What?
We're starting it off raw today, boys and girls. I'm not drunk. You have a problem. Developed by Flagship, a subsidiary of Capcom. It came out in 2001. They worked on such games as, I don't know, Resident Evil 2? Maybe a little-known franchise called Onimusha. They did, and a game that we might come back to hear later on in this episode, you fun dorks, called Minish Cap. But in this initial situation, they were actually trying to create a trilogy of games. They were going to call it the Triforce series, and the original inspiration was that
Pokemon was making a bunch of money selling the same game twice.
Yes, exactly. Okamoto went to Miyamoto and said, hey, let's remake Legend of Zelda because I want to show the kiddies what the OG Zelda was all about, plus and or make oodles and oodles and oodles of stinky, stupid money off of it. Well, they started to design this game, and they ended up actually having a lot of issues. They were trying to nerf the game, essentially, to make it easy for the kiddies, which is stupid because obviously the kiddies were able to beat it back in the day. You know,
something happened in the early 2000s. Kids don't want to randomly hit rocks all day.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And then, after that does nothing, hit those same rocks with the torch.
Yeah, and they want Spyro. I call it Spyro the Dragon syndrome.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
I think my cousin died of that. Oh, no, I'm thinking of leukemia. I'm sorry.
So, anyways, they ended up scrapping the Legend of Zelda remake and just going with the other 2 games in the trilogy, one which was based on changing the seasons around in order to solve puzzles, and another one that had a time travel mechanic. And I just want to say, these games, I had seasons, my buddy had ages, just like I had Pokemon Blue, and he had Pokemon Red when that came out. We were fun, fast friends. Pat Daly, what's happening? Shout-outs. I loved these games. I had a blast with these games.
If these completely skipped me by, I was not even planning on mentioning it.
Yeah, most people don't, and I actually replayed, I had Oracle of Seasons, so that's the one I replayed out of my love and sort of lust for it. I have a memory.
Impa is thick in this game.
Yeah.
Impa's real thick.
Exactly. It's pretty happening.
Marcus immediately Googling.
Immediately Googling it up. So it was like Link's Awakening, but it added this really cool mechanic where you had this wand of seasons that you could twirl around, and it would change like your screen over to different types of, from winter to spring to fall, and that would allow you to solve different environmental puzzles. And it was just such a cool mechanic, and so was the Ages mechanic as well.
To open this door, you need a pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of pumpkin spice lattes, and you got to murder rich, privileged white girls on your way there. Ganon throws them out at you,
There's only one rich, privileged white girl in the entire series, and it's Zelda.
That is true, which we'll come back to later as they actually changed that for that reason in Skyward Sword, but we'll get there. But anyways, I just wanted to take a second before we move into the big hitters of this episode to really just acknowledge that these two games exist and you can play them on the Wii Shop. So get them, girls. Second of all, they're fucking great, and they're kind of unsung heroes. And it's kind of interesting because, of course, they were developed by Capcom. Capcom would later is going to come up a few times in this episode, again with Minish Cap and some other things, which were really strong Zelda outings. And in a world where, as we'll get to it in a second, everyone in kind of the Zelda Nintendo proper teams were trying to really break ground in a new way and do new things that were kind of interesting. It was kind of awesome to have a team there saying, hey, let's just put out some fucking straight up badass motherfucking Zelda games. And I'm pretty sure they did curse like that in their planning meetings.
The Japanese are notorious for their rudeness and crassness.
Crassness-san. But anyways, so then, of course, after that came Four Swords. Now, that is one that passed me by. Jake, do you have any experience with Four Swords?
Something happened in America where, like, they just did not sell link cables.
Yeah.
Like, the very idea of, like, having to go over to your friend's house with your own console, with your own, like, wire... nobody I knew did that.
I didn't have 4 friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like completely, not a reality for me. So, but yes.
I had 4 friends, but they each hated each other.
And that was the thing. And it was kind of a difficult sort of situation because, you would fight, you would work together to get through the dungeon, but you would compete for rupees. What are we doing? Are we fucking or are we fighting? That's what I'm saying, Four Swords Zelda. But either way, it did quite well. It was another collaboration between Nintendo and Capcom.
Came with a Link to the Past for Game Boy Advance.
So damn.
Yeah, it was packed in. It was opening screen. You picked. Did you want to play Link to the Past or Four Swords?
That's super badass. And it also actually was the first game to introduce that kind of more cartoony Wind Waker look for Link. It was kind of a precursor to, and here it is.
Oh, so can I set the table for this?
Set the table, put the forks out, put the napkins out, baby.
Ocarina of Time fucking rocked Nintendo fans to the tip of the top, to their nips, to their nops. They were all about adult Link fighting giant like monsters and like running around and, having hot desert thief chicks be like, oh, maybe you'll be the guy we fuck once every 100 years. I'm having trouble remembering the series. And Majora's Mask, like, now through the lens of critical theory, we can be like, oh, this was a really unique and interesting and like and good game. But at the time, it was like, I don't want to be Kid Link. I want to be cool adult Link again. So at Space World 2000, on the cusp of the unveiling of the GameCube, they showed off a trailer of Link fighting Ganondorf with the most badass music playing, which is going to be a thing. They use this music for every Link to Legend of Zelda trailer, like, from here on out. This is like the official Get Hype Zelda music. And it's, oddly enough, a track from the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack. But, like, there was Miyamoto, talking about this hot new console that was going to blow everything out of the water with, like, all the power and all the things that, like, made you not just a wee Nintendo boy, but a big, bald Nintendo man.
Big-ass, fun-ass man.
Ganondorf. Link in Mortal Kombat, swords flashing.
They look so real.
I mean, they look like weird lumpy rubber people, but it was the year 2000. We thought that was real enough.
It's gritty, it's dark, it's just what I want.
Violence, power.
I'm gonna kill you, Mom. I mean, give me the game.
Those are two very close yet separate emotions. So that was a year of hype as everyone was looking forward to this next-gen Ocarina of Time. Like, this new fucking entry into the series. But at Space World 2001, with that exact same music, they showcased what was going to be the Wind Waker, and it looked like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yes.
And all the angry teens that I knew shat themselves in rage.
Nicknamed Zelda, it was using the cell shading, or as some people call the toon shading. It appears to be flat, using less shading and color in order to get that across. This cartoony feel, a total fake out for the audience. They were like gearing up for like Ocarina on steroids, and instead
the original trailer looks like Dark Souls, and this is just like chibi anime surprise time with like they do double takes and like Link's giving like little smirks, and it's nothing what they were expecting.
Yes. Well, apparently what happened was in preparing to get the GameCube out on its feet, they quickly put together this sort of little video for the audience at Space World. But Aonuma, who, as you recognize from many episodes previous, most recently he was like essentially the dungeon master of Majora's Mask. He's like the innovator. This guy, now having completed my research on Legend of Zelda, I have such a high respect and regard for Aonuma because he is the dude who kept the series alive. Now, some would say, he almost killed the series with Wind Waker and with his instincts for it. But personally, the way Zelda works is it's kept alive in hindsight almost. Like, people shit all over the new thing because it's different. And then, it's like Bob Dylan going electric, man. It really was the same thing, right? Everyone was freaking out because Zelda went cartoon.
All right. Now, I know you guys liked cool and like dungeons and sword fights, but hear me out. What about boats? What about colorful boats?
So, yeah, Aonuma looked at the video that came out, and he just felt it was too derivative for a new game. He said, this isn't the Zelda at all. This isn't Zelda at all. It wasn't the Zelda I wanted to make. So a designer at Nintendo, Haruhana, while they were sort of kicking around ideas over there at Nintendo, you know how they did. Like I mentioned in previous episodes, smoking joints in the conference rooms. The elevator would open. Oh, you know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the Live from New York SNL book. Yeah, it was very different at Nintendo. No, I don't think they were doing that at all. Haruhana, a designer, created a cartoonish drawing of a young Link, and the team liked it so much they decided to take it and run with it. And they felt like for the style, the look of it, islands in an ocean setting would be best to represent this kind of cartoonish look, and that added, of course, a sailboat mechanic to the gameplay.
Now, the Wind Waker is a gorgeous game. Like,
yes.
It stands the test of time.
Let me just say, I think everybody's shitty reaction to this, the backlash, is dumb and the R word that I can't say anymore. I love Wind Waker, and I love how different it is. And I kind of tried to think back on my reaction at the time. See, you also have to realize Wind Waker hit right around the time I went through my snooty college phase. Marcus, you would have loved me during this time. I didn't watch TV, and I only listened to jazz.
Ugh.
So yeah, I didn't.
You were centimeters away from punching distance, and I'm too lazy to lean forward.
So I was trying to remember my reaction. I don't think it was very big either way for the new Zelda.
Wait, so you didn't watch TV and you only listened to jazz, but you were still like playing the fuck out of Final Fantasy VII?
See, I think that was like another year later, right? I think Grand Theft Auto Vice City came out and everything changed. But yeah, so for a while there, like I think I was kind of like whatever-y, about the whole thing. And then, but years later, I ended up getting to play Wind Waker, and boy, oh boy, did I love it. Mm-hmm. And I disliked it for reasons that had nothing to do with its animation. In fact, the thrill of getting to finally feel like I was playing a cartoon was awesome for me. Yeah. Like, I loved that. I didn't understand how that signified it being kiddie, or how Zelda wasn't kiddie before this. Excuse me, princess.
That's the thing. Zelda was kiddie before, and Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask gave you a hint of maturity. And then Wind Waker, in the minds of, very vulnerable, angry teens, took it back. Like, you didn't get to be like, nuh-uh, Zelda's for cool grown-ups. But specifically, looking at the original bad Space World trailer of gritty Zelda, the facial expressions are dumb. They're like these weird, bad, droopy, rubber, clay-faced things, and it looks so ugly. versus the expressions Link makes in Wind Waker is incredible. You feel more connected to Link than you ever did in any previous game because he's actively reacting to the world around him using the focus system.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up, Jake.
Rather than just have an annoying fairy fly around, they just realized, like, oh, if we give Link really big eyeballs and have him look at the thing you're supposed to interact with, people will know instinctively because of the connection they have with the player, and it totally works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, the whole thing's great. I replayed it recently because I should say, they re-released it on the Wii U. I highly recommend that version. And it's absolutely wonderful. It's one of the best games in the Zelda franchise. Well, they talk about this even. There's been an interview where they talk about what they call the Zelda Cycle. And it's the theory that Zelda fans always prefer the style of the Zelda that came before the last version. So at one point, you've got a quote from Iwata, late president.
Late President Satoru Iwata.
Yes, rest in peace. He said, yes, Bill Trinan-san at Nintendo of America, which I love, first of all, adding san to an American name, but also that his last name's Trinan. Perfect for the Zelda series.
I don't actually... It's been a while since I've actually paid attention to Bill in all the Nintendo Directs.
Who always plays a big role in preparing the overseas versions of the Legend of Zelda games, he says, always talks about the Zelda Cycle. Aonuma said, is quoted as saying, basically, as time progresses, negative opinions about the Legend of Zelda turn into positive ones. At first, I wasn't sure about that, but seeing the response to the Wind Waker HD, I think that might be right. This is an interview that was conducted as the Wind Waker HD remake was coming out. But due to that backlash, they had to change their game a little bit. Mm-hmm. The backlash was so severe and so intense, they limited revealing any further information until they had a playable demonstration of the game. And they also had to hide their wives. They had to hide their wives. It was three Nintendo wives were straight up murdered in the town square. No, they were dragged out in the town square and horses stomped them to death. That's what they do in Japan. It's brutal out there.
I feel like the pack-in of Ocarina of Time and the Master Quest was probably part of the attempt to alleviate.
Yeah, can you
that backlash?
Explain this amazing pack-in with the GameCube Wind Waker.
I think it's if you pre-ordered it, you got an extra. Those if you don't those teeny tiny GameCube discs?
Yes, those cute, adorable GameCube discs.
I swear to God, if Nintendo figured out that you could pirate games using children, they would stop having babies. They hate piracy so much that they just kneecap their tech.
And yet they're the worst at it. The 3DS is a shit show right now because it's so hackable at this point.
I mean, after a certain point, I never paid for a DS game. Those are good days.
The thoughts and opinions are not representative of Jake Young or Holden McNeely.
If I get arrested for admitting to stealing DS games using a flashcard,
please don't arrest Jake Young. The thoughts and opinions of Jake Young.
This isn't legally binding. That's
I thought all I had to do was talk like that, and I'd get out of any lawsuit.
Holden McNeely does not respond to any of the lawsuits that you today are talking about.
That's what they all say, boyo.
So the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition included, get this shit, Legend of Zelda for NES, Zelda 2 for NES, Ocarina of Time with the Master Quest, originally titled Uru Zelda, which we talked about in last episode. If you haven't heard last episode, get on it, son. And and Majora's Mask. Holy Lord, that's a lot of games.
Yeah.
Great games in a pack-in.
As an apology for a game that everyone agrees is great.
It's incredible. It's so fun and good. But I will say it didn't have, it wasn't without issue, but it mainly was dealt with due to the long sailing times, which I remember I was in college when I played it a couple years later. It was over the summer, and I was literally just laying on my couch doing nothing anyway, so I kind of appreciated the zenning out that the long sailing
just
periods.
These giant, beautiful fields of blue.
Yes, yeah.
Just the sky and that weird, half crescent animation in front of the boat to represent the water splashing.
Yeah. But that end game is a fucker.
Oh, the Triforce Shard quest.
Yeah, I got a little upset today when I was on the old Wikipedias, and I read that 2 planned dungeons fell behind schedule and were therefore cut and replaced with the shittiest thing in the game. What? I'm so mad. What were those dungeons? Were they cool? cool?
They ended up using them in later, I don't know which specifically, but in Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, those ideas ended up getting reused.
Okay, because man, that thing sucked. Okay, well, can you help me with this? You had to find map pieces and then use the map pieces to find Triforce parts.
So the idea was that Link's Triforce of Courage was like broken up, and you had to find pieces of it all over this. I think it's like 49 square ocean map, and in order to get the pieces, you had to decipher maps. To decipher the maps, you had to get like a fuck ton of rupees and give them to your old pal Tingle.
Good old Tingle. We didn't even talk about fun old Tingle.
So it creates this horrifying time
Tingly Dingle, Marcus.
Fun old Tingle.
Tingly
Kululimpa!
Tingle's waiting for you in the school recess yard. All right?
Tingle is literally just they've admitted this in interviews, that Tingle is the Nintendo team's own just admission that, like, while they're in the middle of this office building screaming about whether or not Link should hold the sword in the left hand or the right hand, they're just like, fuck, we're all in our 30s, man. What are we? We're just grown-ass men asking about, like, trying to pretend we're fairy boys. Like Tingle is like their own self-hating caricature, but also their self-love caricature because he's so cute.
He's wonderful. I love my tingly dinglies.
So it's this boring time sync loop that just ground the game to a halt. And in the remaster,
yes,
they cut it down substantially and give you like the Swift sail
yes,
to kind of like rush that part of the game.
So I have to say, I'll take this time right now. I know I'm going to recommend some shit later on in this episode. I highly recommend the Wind Waker HD remake on the Wii U. It's fantastic. They, like Jake said, added a faster sail option, and they fixed the end part of the game to make that a lot faster and smoother. So really, like, the two qualms I had about the game are, and that most people had about the game, are fixed in that version. So it really is the ideal version if you were thinking about getting back into it, but kind of had it in the back of your head that parts of it sucked. Mm-hmm. Those parts are fixed in that version, and it looks great. It looks good.
So what are some of your favorite parts from Wind Waker? Like, what are moments or fights or areas that stand out in your head?
I mean, I think, like, my favorite thing about Wind Waker would have to be sort of what Zelda's kind of based upon. I know it's like kind of a shitty answer, but the idea that you could be sailing around, going towards some objective, and you find some weird island or some sea monster or something in the middle of all that, and you'll go, and all of a sudden, you'll walk on it. Just looks like maybe it's just like a tree on a little island, and then you'll fall into a hole, and you'll be in like a giant entire dungeon. I really liked. Is it Zelda or is it Zelda in the game? It's
when
like,
she's the pirate cat.
She's a
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yeah.
The blonde-haired girl that's a central character in a Zelda game turns out to be Zelda.
She's a swashbuckling, awesome pirate character, and it's really fucking cool. She's like a badass. I think that they took some notes from Ocarina, and they did really like people's positive response to, spoiler alert, what's the name, Sheik? Mm-hmm. Yeah, to the Sheik character that's revealed to be Zelda. The Sheik the whole time is this like badass character, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's also Lady Zelda. And I think they kind of went farther into that with that. Jake, you?
I really like the combat system and how it has a rhythm game component where like you get music cues as you're doing combat.
The music is fantastic in this game.
I really like the graphics. And another spoiler alert, they basically fold in the plot of Ocarina of Time and kind of, I feel like this game is what solidified the Hyrule Historia timeline rigmarole because throughout the game, it's revealed that the events of Wind Waker are basically the events of Ocarina of Time. You see in temples, you see the seven sages, Saria and Naburu, and what's the old man's name? I forgot the old man's name.
Saharasla?
No, that's the old man from Link to the Past. But good job.
Count Dunkula.
Count Dunkula, the Grisbil.
Yeah, the dancing one, right? The one that's good with the disco beat.
And Dr. Disco Dingo.
Dr. Disco Dingo, yeah. And you had to yell into the controller, hey, ha, and it would...
In the Temple of Funk, where you got his piece of the Bifrost.
We should write one of these. We'd be really good at it. Yeah, it takes place 100 years after the adult Link ending of Ocarina. So I think the split happens... It's the child Link ending of Ocarina. It's as if the child Link went on. That's one split timeline. The adult Link went forward. That's the one split timeline. And I guess Ganon wins is the other split timeline.
I hate that they made this official. Like, it doesn't, like, just acknowledge that this game series has been a part of my life and, like, reward me with that knowledge and make me feel a part of something bigger. Don't actually try and codify it because it's not going to fit.
I read some old quote from Miyamoto that I'm not gonna say it correctly because I didn't write it down, but he said something along the lines at one point. It was just like every game, it's just like a different Link showing up at a different place and going dealing with that world. So I think they could have had a lot more fun with like parallel realities. Links and they could have made a whole game based around that idea, but instead they had to create this whole like weird.
This is a point that blew my mind when the more I thought about it doing research for this. Is it's always a new Link, it's always a new Zelda. But in theory, it's still the same Ganondorf that keeps getting sealed away and keeps coming back.
So how cool would it be to base it all around that, and then to have like a Bowser's Inside Story version for Ganon or whatever? That's a Nintendo DS Super Mario RPG game, which I need to play. By the way, I've just heard about it. Really?
I mean, they're all fine. They're all good.
They're all good,
except Paper Mario Sticker Star. That shit
I heard
trash.
It is a bag of trash shit. Also used cell shading.
But it goes so far. I actually learned this the other day, and that's what I love doing. I love about this show is there's stuff that I'm like, oh, I love this thing, and I get to learn more about it.
Yes.
The ocean map, as you uncover it, the grid, the 7x7 grid, I think 49 squares, 49 islands. It actually coincides roughly with the Ocarina of Time Hyrule map, so that like the fortress you infiltrate roughly kind of shows up where the Gerudo Fortress was, and like Death Mountain shows up where the volcano was, and it kind of like it when they say in the game that like it was the entire ocean, the Great Sea that we know it as, is actually Hyrule flooded. It's true. It's just this brilliant little extra piece of trivia that also means that Aonuma didn't have to design a whole new overworld.
Totally. And I also want to shout out to the boat that has a dragon head and talks to you and hangs out with you.
Oh, the King of Red Lions.
Yes. Super. Oh, it's a lion head. Either way.
It's, them Chinese.
It's a dragon lion.
Yeah.
It's a dryan. Either way. So anyways, this game got wonderful critical reception, and I think years later got its due from fans. But in the meantime, it did not sell very well in North America. I mean,
it's. I thought it's. I have a different story from my research.
Nintendo reported that the sales did not live up to expectations.
So I heard Aonuma talk about in an interview in a talk at GDC that the game it sold 3 million copies, which is respectable is very good for a game, but like the original NES version of Legend of Zelda sold more, and that was back when they were like expensive clunky plastic things and not teeny tiny GameCube discs. That the game sold well in North America, but sold very poorly in Japan.
Oh.
Which was experiencing at the time what he called the console drift, which was gamers were beginning to kind of like get away from dedicated consoles and switched more to PC games or just stopped gaming in general.
And handheld is huge in Japan, and now it's all about mobile in Japan.
Oh God.
It's a whole different scene out there than, and these consoles don't do as well as they do out here. I love the console. I mean, we can get into that, but, I don't know. I just an easy, simple thing that you don't have to wrestle with quite so much to get the game working. You know, I don't know.
Oh, not me, man. There's nothing I love better than sitting in an office chair and installing drivers. Does my DirectX need updating? Oh, it does? This is even more fun than the game.
Well, I'm going to base my next comments on the split timeline where Zelda didn't sell very well in North America.
So because it did so well in North America, that's what motivated them to really push hard for the North American market. And if there was one message they were getting from the North American market, it was make Link cool.
At the time, we're looking at the successful games that are GTA Vice City, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. I mean, these are dark, gritty games. This is the time in gaming when things got dark and gritty, you know, when things got and as realistic as possible. I think Wind Waker was one of the first games that came out that really, like, in the mainstream, that made the argument we're not necessarily just trying to push the graphics as far as we can go to make a great game. We maybe want to just make artistic games with, you know, that aren't just trying to make things look as real as possible. Because until then, it was like an arms race to try to make the graphics as realistic and true to life as possible. And I think nowadays you have a very different gaming environment where some games, yes, are trying to do that. But most games now, I feel like, or at least half, are not necessarily trying to do that. They're just trying to have an interesting artistic take on the visuals. And, you know, and it doesn't need to be intensely high-powered graphics.
There was like an infographic that made the rounds, I think, a year or two ago, but it pans out that the difference between 100 polygons and 1,000 polygons is breathtaking in terms of like trying to represent a single model. The difference between 1,000 polygons and 5,000 polygons is the difference between like, hey, that looks like a thing, is like, oh, is that real? But the difference between 5,000 polygons and 10,000 polygons is just kind of like, I guess you can't tell. It's diminishing rewards.
Hair.
Yeah, it's the rewards are diminishing. Like, so the spectacle of look what we can do with graphics is diminishing returns. It's amazing that you pointed out that this is what many people call like the grim, brown, dingy era of gaming. Gears of War, especially, kind of like hit that home. If you look at screenshots of Twilight, absent of any context. Twilight Princess versus Wind Waker, it's brown versus blue. Yeah. Like bright blue versus like hazy brown.
I'm so glad we're out of that phase too, by the way. I mean, I like my gritty dark games, but, you know, I mean, even the new Doom is like colorful and, you know, and exciting. So anyways, Anuma says the only thing we could do was give the healthy North American market the Zelda that they wanted. And in comes Twilight Princess, released in December of 2006 on GameCube and Wii.
There's a famous
evil number 13th installment.
At Space World 2004, they announced the game with the famous picture of Miyamoto with the shield and sword swinging around, and they played a trailer of what was a cool, dark, or maybe it wasn't Space World, maybe it was like E3 or something. But it was Miyamoto with the sword and the Master Sword and the Hylian shield, and they unveiled this footage of like a dark Link swinging his giant sword around, killing fuckers, playing what music, of course, but Riddle of Steel from the Conan soundtrack, and the crowd is losing their minds.
They handed out just turkey on a stick to everybody. So all these people are just chomping into big meat stacks, just screaming.
Are you not entertained? I give you blood for the blood god.
They had to put women in steel-bound dresses so that the men wouldn't get too handsy with them. It was some sort of bizarre Temple of Babel.
You can find the footage. People are going insane for Twilight Princess, and it's the first rated T for teen Zelda game.
Holy shit. Zelda smoking cigarettes in this one.
You cut stuff, it bleeds.
So this game, what do you think about this game?
I think it has its own unique aesthetic. The ways that they kind of make the Twilight world kind of ethereal and different from the Light world, using a various, like, not like graphics not graphics power, but like literal art direction and techniques.
That like neon light look, kind of in the beasts and everything, was kind of
and like
was
the
neat.
black pixels and the geometry. It's a gorgeous game. It's visually very distinctive. The character designs, the normal people look ugly and weird. God damn, what's wrong with Mallow? You remember Mallow, that weird little kid?
Yeah,
He's real freaky looking.
I was looking at some pictures, and there's a lot of weird looking kids in it. Stuff.
And doing research, trying to like get because I actually skipped Twilight Princess. I think I watched like half a playthrough back when I was in a real unemployed Game Grumps hole. Don't judge me. We've all been there. We've all been in the unemployed Game Grumps hole, and I will be... Leave a comment in the Wizard and the Bruiser Facebook page when you talk about when you fell in your personal unemployment Game Grumps Let's Play hole.
Jake's shirt is in tatters. He ripped it off like
I'm a man!
Can we hear that music again? Do you have it? Oh, God, I need to hear it again. Oh, I'm alive! I need a job!
All right, we're go. But people fucking love Midna.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that I took away from the fan reaction to Twilight Princess is, especially in kids that grew up with this as their first Zelda, Midna is far and away the best companion character in the entire Legend of Zelda series.
Describe... Yeah, you were...
I loved Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I thought it was a great game.
You modeled the rest of your life to look exactly like Xand eventually.
I remember it took, which this is tenfold in the next major console release, but it took a little while to get it going. It took a little while to get into the story.
What?
I do
You
remember
didn't
that.
like the goat herding mini game?
But I do remember it had some phenomenal dungeons, like really, really awe-inspiring kind of wonderful dungeons.
Okay, here's the thing. Aonuma is great at designing like physical 3D spaces, like rooms where you are like looking at things and testing things out and trying to navigate through them. But in a video from the YouTube series Boss Keys, where they go into painstaking detail about the design philosophy in each Zelda game's dungeons, he pointed out that like almost every single dungeon in Twilight Princess is just you enter a single room, you only can go to the door on the right, so you start down that path, you go back to the center room, the door on the left opens up, you follow that path, and then when you finally get back to the center, you have all the Googas you need to open the door through the center.
Which is the level design for the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, which was one of Aonuma's big breakthroughs in Ocarina of Time, is how do you design a dungeon in 3D space, which, is an amazing problem to solve. And the fact is that a lot of people have this argument about what does it mean to be a Legend of Zelda game. Is it about hoping that a random NPC character gives you a cryptic clue so you know which rock to hit at which screen? Or is it about like embodying the spirit of adventure and like, kind of running around and feeling like Link? And people are kind of like mad at Aonuma for kind of eschewing the earlier style. But I honestly that's not, I played Zelda 1 as like a curiosity. I played Ocarina of Time like it was the Bible.
Yeah, totally. And I do think that Ocarina of Time, I would make the argument that a Zelda game and a really good Zelda dungeon makes you feel like a genius, even though you're super not. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's super fun. You're having a great time, and then all of a sudden...
Hello, Harvard. I just pushed a block into a block-sized hole.
Right, exactly, right? And
when can I start?
it just gives you the sounds and the whatever you need to get that endorphin rush of like, I'm the smartest dude in this dungeon full of dumb monsters.
Hello, Yale. I melted ice using fire.
Yeah, and it's all because you hear this sound right here.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
So good.
Oh, fuck.
So good.
You hear that sound and
Please.
you do think like, I am the smartest human
Marcus,
being
do
on
not
Earth.
play that again. I will die. Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't women listen to this show?
I don't know. But also in Ocarina of Time, when you open a treasure chest with anything important in it, like it's just, ooh, it feels so fucking good.
You got 5 rupees.
Yeah!
I'll take it.
Wait a tick. We should mention, too, they were in the middle of developing Wind Waker 2.
Yeah, it's based on the same engine.
And Aonuma himself went to Miyamoto and said, hey, we got to make a dark, gritty game here. We have to scrap this and totally start anew. So they not only did they change direction, I mean, they were making the game, and I wonder what that would have been like. I would have loved. But apparently they took a lot of those ideas and they put it into a game we'll talk about next.
That's it's weird that you mentioned that, because this is a pattern I've recognized when about The Legend of Zelda is Miyamoto is like the godhead of Nintendo. He just like routinely pops in, and if he doesn't like what's happening, he just like no, we're not doing this. Like everything has to go through him. And one of Aonuma's like biggest talents is actually getting Miyamoto to go ahead with his ideas. Because like the idea of Wolf Link, Link turns into a wolf in this game.
Oh, yeah, by the way, yeah, an edgy, badass wolf. I mean, let's talk about the edge.
With dreadlocks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this game is so much edge in it.
But the idea was they wanted an alternate style of exploration and combat, kind of like adult Link, young Link, but without fucking babies. No babies in this game. And Miyamoto was like going over this, this intense, they had to design they had to figure out the idea for it. They had to design the mechanics. They had to like make the characters. And so they're finally unveiling this new part of this giant game to Miyamoto. And Miyamoto just kind of smiles and is just like, it's really boring to look at the backside of a wolf's ass. Make someone ride him later. And that's how Midna was created.
There you go.
You're just like, okay. And so that's how they incorporated Midna into the game. There wouldn't have been a Midna if Miyamoto didn't just be like, I don't like looking at wolf butt.
Oh, yeah, what was the Midna sound thing?
Oh, okay. So I completely lost. Guys, thank you. We're very caffeinated when we do this show.
Woo!
People like Midna because she's very expressive without being like, she's cartoony, but her face shows a lot of emotion. She's like your cool, like, neighborhood girlfriend who, like, is sassy and, like, grows on you over time. Turns out at the end of the game, she was hot the whole time. She's got oddly, like, a weird, like, one of those midget porn star bodies. You're just like, that's the wrong shape, but the curves are all there. That's weird. Why don't women listen to this show? And
I like girls because girls have boobs. I'm sorry, Jake. Go on.
And so, like, she forms this emotional attachment with Link over the game. She has real motivations, and she serves that same kind of role as, like, Navi or Fi or any of the other helper characters. But, like, she's so ingrained that you care about her personal journey, and she cares about Link, and by extension, you. It's, like, a very well-constructed relationship. So she speaks in this garbled kind of Nintendo-ese, where it's, kind of like, it's whether it's Animal Crossing or Mario Brothers, they always kind of, or Star Fox. Is that your Midna impression?
Yeah, it's also the way I talk dirty.
Oh, no.
Just naked, rock hard.
Terrifying.
She walks in the room, I just go, I turn to her like real quick. I snap my neck over at her. What does that mean? Do you want a blowjob? Do you want full intercourse?
Oh, so it turns out that Midna's lines were actually recorded in full. Like, the dialogue in the game is the dialogue that was recorded by a Japanese voice actress in English, which wasn't her first language. So, these official tapes were never released. Fans actually went back and chopped up the original Midna dialogue and reassembled it in the original recording. So it sounds weird, but this is what Midna actually sounds like de-scrambled.
Which one really? Have you made up your mind? I'll take you there with my power. What do you think happened to those who try to rule with sacred magic? I have a request. Would you find a mirror? Don't go running off. I'll be watching. I guess you aren't stupid.
Some of those are actually voice lines from Diva, or maybe May. I don't know. Guys, I just made a racist all Asians sound the same joke. I don't feel good. It feels bad. Not gonna lie.
Those two characters sound similar in the game. Look, what we're trying to say is it's fascinating the way that they did that with the vocals.
Yes.
It's a big departure from most other Zelda games with the only vocalizations is like, wah! Huh? Ha! Listen!
Watch out!
Hi. Listen. So Twilight Princess came out and had a great response, big sales, did very well.
Also, it had the spinner. Remember the spinner?
Yeah, wait, that you jumped on?
The gear with the top and all that?
Yes.
And the ball and chain.
And that whole dungeon was kick-ass. And that ending fight in the sand was kick-ass.
Oh, yeah. Hopping from... There was some Tony... Link snowboards in this thing.
Yeah.
There's some Tony... Like, they were really gunning for the fucking American boy bucks.
God, I'm just realizing that when I played this game, it was when I was smoking like the most weed of my life. So I don't remember most of it.
Do you remember the Freaky Yeti couple?
No.
Wow.
Also, we didn't even mention this part, which is one of the most fascinating things about its release. It was released on both the GameCube and the Wii. It was originally supposed to be a GameCube-only game, but because of the way the Wii was coming out and the delays on the game, they ended up saying, hey, we need to release it on both. Problem was, Link is left-handed. So what happened was, they realized that... with the Wiimote, most people are right-handed, right?
So the swinging waggle mechanics, you're swinging with your right hand to swing the sword.
They felt like it was a little too weird to have you swinging your right hand and having Link swing the sword with his left. But they were really behind. So instead of having to redo all of Link's animations, what they did for the Wii version is just made a mirror of everything in the game. So the entire map and everything is just a mirror flip. So, and they also had to change certain things like east to west and things like that in dialogue. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, it's nuts. They just did a total weird mirror flip between the Wii and the GameCube
They just
version.
flipped an axis and called it a day.
And just said fuck it, because they just didn't have time to go back through and change it in that sort of a dramatic way.
I wonder if Twilight Princess HD, if it's the left hand or the right hand.
That's a good question. I have to go find out. I'm gonna actually, I don't know if the Wiimotes work with the HD. And of course, what he's referring to is there was an HD remake for the Twilight Princess last year, I believe, 2016. And apparently it's great. It's kind of less of a dramatic update than the Wind Waker HD, but I've heard it definitely stands up if you're curious about playing it. So the next game in the franchise.
I have one weird piece.
Please.
Do you know about Uku? Uku.
No.
Uku, which is the weird mirror Twilight version of Cuckoos, were the gross-headed boob chicken things that helped Link in that one weird dungeon.
I remember those.
You're okay. That made it through. Yeah. Weird-headed chicken boob thing.
Well,
gross-headed boob chicken. Yeah, I'm gonna remember that.
If you're super high, you're gonna remember that.
If you're super high, that's the only thing it's gonna make. That's the only thing it's getting through.
So the thing is, it's a weird name, right? Uku. It's even weirder because, if you actually look at the characters, it's not spelled with O's, it's spelled with zeros, which is even weirder because 00C00 is the hexadecimal color hash code for the exact tone of green of Link's tunic in the original Legend of Zelda.
Huh.
Why would you even put that detail in there?
That's amazing.
It's just it's just to highlight that these games are the work of so many people putting so many ideas and collaborating into this one finished product that you can't pick apart every detail. You'd be here all day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really involved a lot of back and forth, too. They really struggled with the innovations in this game, and that's why they ended up putting it out on the Wii and dramatically changing it, because they were like, you know what will make things drastically different? Adding motion controls. So they Miyamoto actually suggested that to them when they were having troubles with development, saying that, you know what would be really cool is if you could fire bow and arrows off with the Project Revolution, which was the name of the Wii. What was the code name before
Thank God they learned their lesson after Project Dolphin for the GameCube.
There you go. So I found the next title to be more divisive in my sort of group of friends, even than Wind Waker, and that would be Phantom Hourglass for the DS. It came out in October of 2007 in the U.S., and I love this game. Marcus, a new owner of a 3DS, I will be lending you this game, and I hope you take to it like I did. Other people I know, I have a friend who has a Triforce tattoo on his hand, and he put down the game, said he could not play it, did not enjoy it. I have diehard Zelda fans that do not like this game. I thought it was amazing. You use the stylus to control Link. You attack with the stylus, which is the little plastic pin on your DS and the touch screen. You don't take the stylus
off the touch screen.
No, not at all.
Everything is communicated through swipes and slashes and circles.
And it's so good.
It's very naturalistic.
Yeah.
It feels great. I did not like how everything revolved around. This is like the Triforce Shard quest.
Yeah. Go on, Jake. This is what sucks about the game.
So as you progress through the game, you get new powers and new items like every other Zelda game, but it's all based on going back to this one central dungeon where you play with Zelda in an armored suit.
Replay through every level of the dungeon to play through the next level and then go back. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt. It's not as bad as it's annoying.
It's not. I mean, it's not Dark Souls, but I remember as
it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. But the way it utilizes the DS's limited graphics capacity to still deliver on the Wind Waker aesthetic
has a look of the Wind Waker.
And even the mini games where you're like getting treasure from the ocean floor and like you're fighting guys, and the way the boss battles would kind of pour across both
They use
screens.
both screens, and it makes this epic.
It's really well made, and I have pleasant memories of it. Spirit Tracks was better.
I have to I'm glad you said that because I have not played Spirit Tracks yet, and I'm very excited to play Spirit Tracks. But I
the outro music for this episode is going to be the Spirit Tracks theme. I just decided.
Fuck yeah! So I wanted to describe one puzzle in particular, just to get it across how innovative this game was. And I apologize for the spoiler, but just to get it across, you guys, how cool this game is. There's one puzzle where you have to copy a map that you see on the top screen down to a little notebook on your bottom screen. It's like a map or like a Triforce. It's like a symbol thing. And I kept trying to figure out how to do it. I'm just like, how do I copy this down? I'm using the stylus and I'm trying to write it down. Of course, you can take notes using the stylus on like parts of the map, so I thought it was that. I'm just racking my brain. I'm like, how the fuck are you supposed to do? I'm like blowing into the damn thing. I'm like, what do you do? And then I realized I closed the DS and opened it back up, and the fucking thing was copied on the bottom screen. That is one of the coolest things I've ever done on DS. That is such a fucking cool idea. It was such a great gaming
That's
moment.
the kind of puzzle that either like you're like, oh, the breadth of experience, how beautiful, or you're like, it'd be nice if you told me that was a fucking option game.
It's the only time it happens in the whole game, in any game that I've ever played on the DS.
There's a few DS games that make
utilize
you smush
that.
it. Yeah.
It reminded me of a game that I hope we actually cover on just an entire episode called The World Ends With You on the DS. It's one of my favorite DS games.
We're going to be doing this show for a long time before we get to specifically The World Ends With You.
I love that game so much.
Maybe if we did a Nomura episode,
maybe.
just be like, guys, it was the mid-2000s. We liked baggy jorts.
Yes. So next came Spirit Tracks, which Jake says is better, which I'm excited about because I'm definitely going to get it soonish and play it on my DS. It's the one I haven't played yet. The overworld Link travel, and in the overworld, Link travels around on a train. That got a lot of controversy.
He has a little conductor's uniform, and it's adorable.
They're like, why come trains be in medieval world? And Miyamoto's like, it's fine. It's imagination.
It's fine.
It's fine, right? So I can't speak as much towards this as maybe you could, Spirit Tracks, and what makes it so fantastic.
The soundtrack is good. They clear up the thing that was the most annoying about Phantom Hourglass. It still has the touch controls, which are very responsive and nice, and it just was well executed. You know, it was very late in the DS's lifespan. They knew how to get as much power and presentation out of it as possible, and I don't know. It's been a very long time since I picked it
They
up.
don't have a dumb, shitty dungeon you have to keep going back to in order to beat it. Yeah, for sure. So after that, we get Skyward Sword, released on the Wii in November 2011. This game really was mired with a lot of difficulties in development, and that mainly just because, and it's very obvious, I think, when you look at the product. They were just kind of running out of ideas here, you know, in terms of how to innovate, how to make a different but same Zelda game. Because I think what makes Zelda so wonderful through time is that they have a pretty basic model. You know, there's certain elements that lie in each game, but they always have a twist, a spin, some kind of innovative new thing, right?
It's in theory, that's one lesson that I hope people take away from this is that The Legend of Zelda was never really about telling a story or like codifying what a Zelda game is supposed to be. It was always just the Nintendo Corporation and its vast pool of talented developers and artists and musicians and art and everybody involved in making a game to like throw out ideas and like kind of explore what they can do using a new technology.
And that's why I kind of found the story with Twilight Princess to be a little bit of a bummer, because to me it sounded like it was the first time where they started to listen to the outside world a little more. And not to say that that didn't create a great game with Twilight Princess, but at the same time it just felt like it was the first instance where they said, you know what, North America wants dark and gritty, we're going to give them dark and gritty as a, you know, yeah?
I mean, there was still that Goron sumo wrestling mini game. I think they still kept their spirited. They still gave Xanth that freaky cut up mouth. God, remember? Oh, when they finally reveal his mouth and he's like all dripping with saliva and he's like creeping up on Midna. Fuck, man, that was annoying in Twilight Princess. We were like, just kidding. It was Ganon. Ganon's the real bad guy.
So Skyward Sword's a little tough for me because I ended up playing it kind of recently, and I actually put it down halfway through. Now, part of this, I was telling the guys before the episode started, I didn't realize that you need to attach this, what is it called, the Motion Plus?
Wii Motion Plus.
Expansion device, kind of like you saw with Majora's Mask and the little add-on you needed to play that game. Well, I didn't realize that, and I'd been playing it with just the OG Wiimote on my Wii U and getting supremely frustrated at the motion controls, so I think I need to give it a second shot.
Well, here's the thing. As someone who did play with Wii Motion Plus, the motion controls are still really frustrating.
Yeah, right? It just, confining it to making it so, I mean, it's a great instinct.
When it works, it's amazing, because the sword moves, the Wii Motion Plus adds a gyroscope to the accelerometer that was already in the Wii remote. So not only are you getting like acceleration and force, so it knows when you're waggling, but it also knows like which direction it's being held in 3D space. So the combination is you're holding the Wiimote in your hand, and it knows when you're slashing, and it knows at which angle it's coming from. So sword fighting with it
is, yeah, more varied.
When it works is amazing. But then there's also these like other items. I remember this flying beetle thing where you actually had to like physically like steer it like it was a paper airplane in your hand, and it just would not go the direction you wanted it to go. And it does have some great characterization. I feel like the world of Skyward Sword and the characters, like Zelda is just like your fucking first crush in this game. Like they make her so like,
it's like a high school movie kind of in the very beginning.
Groose.
Yeah.
Oh, Groose. The perfect character. The best guys. We might criticize Skyward Sword. We might, we've said a lot of praise, but let it be known that I, Jake Young, love Groose more than any other character in the history of Legend of Zelda.
That's amazing. Yeah, I do. Yes, Groose is all right. Jumping into the clouds and flying on a bird was all right. The way they did it with the hub and the overworld and stuff was an interesting change. Where they had sort of different various kind of hubs that you would go to play through the game. Each surface overworld had a specific theme. The forest overworld revolved around landforms altering gameplay. The volcano overworld focused around changing the rules of gameplay, while the desert overworld was themed around duality between past and present. And once you get to the desert overworld and you start to play with those little switches that change between past and present time, that's when the game really started to click with me. I kind of put it down not too long after, and I really want to pick it back up and play through.
They made you keep you had to keep fighting that weird dumb mouth monster.
Yeah.
I forgot its name. It's like something dumb like...
I think it's called Weird Dumb Mouth Monster. If I do recall.
Marcus, Google Skyward Sword dumb mouth monster.
I mean, I already Googled gross-headed chicken boob. You don't even want to know.
You're on like 9 new lists. Fuji Bayashi was the director of the game. He originally AD'd on Phantom Hourglass. I think an interesting thing, and a lot of the team was the team that did work on Spirit Tracks. They pretty much just immediately went over to work on Skyward Sword. Also, with the sword controls, I meant to go back and mention that the first time you raise the sword above your head to do the special move, and you actually had to physically do that, which gave it its own namesake, was like awesome, like to do. And so the instincts were great there.
Fi or Fee or whatever, they made the Master Sword its own character, and it is the most. It's like Navi on steroids. Like they made, instead of like Midna, who was like a character with like conflicting needs and like, you know, kind of you got to know her over time. Fee was just like this weird anime waifu robot maid that was just like, excuse me, Master, did you know that by pressing the forward on the D-pad you can summon a new menu?
And just in terms of the
Master, did you know that by swinging your sword you can attack things?
Fee, we have been over this. Just the
Master, you have gotten 5 rupees. That means if you had 1 rupee and multiplied it by 5, that means you would have that many rupees.
Fee, this is like the 16th game in the series. I know what a fucking rupee is.
Master,
I'm about to faux thumb your ass.
Why is that the best joke of the episode?
I don't know. I wrote it down 4 months ago when we discussed possibly doing this show. And one other cool thing I think that actually makes me, looking back on it, appreciate the graphical look of the game a little bit more, which was a little hard for me jumping into that game after having played, like, I think the last game I played before Skyward Sword was like The Witcher 3. So graphically it was like really hard to digest.
Yeah, that's a hard 480p on
Skyward,
the Wii.
Skyward Sword don't look that great. But the art style was inspired by the work of Impressionist painters like Monet. Miyamoto called the sky in the game a tribute to the painter Cézanne. So it was a lot of, and that actually makes me appreciate the graphics looking back on a little bit more. Also, wait, did I mention this? I think of all the games, and I criticized Twilight Princess a little bit for this, but man, does Skyward Sword take way too long to get going. Oh my God, it takes so long to actually get into the game and get interesting. And there's so much tutorial, and I feel like they really were dumbing it down too much for like an American audience, or what they thought an American audience would need, or for children,
the control
whatever it is.
scheme was so new that like I feel like they wanted to make sure you were like okay, like that your muscles and the neurons connected. And I do like the characterization work that they did in there, but even with all those caveats, it is way too slow to start.
God, it takes it's like 10 hours too long to start. I think that it really it's.
Are we going to end on Breath of the Wild hype?
Well, yeah. I mean, I wanted to. Before that, I want to talk about Marcus. You've actually just started playing A Link Between Worlds.
Oh, God.
I'm in it, man. I'm on the. I think I'm on the 10th dungeon or something like that. Yeah, I'm on the swamp dungeon with all the fire. It's great.
So damn good. I've done 2 playthroughs of it thus far, and the
like
second.
when Link burns his little butt and he flies up towards you on the screen.
Yeah.
And the second playthrough of it, I think I like 100%ed it. I just loved it so much. I covered every inch of that map, every single puzzle. So fucking good, so tightly wound. It is like essentially a sequel to A Link to the Past. It has very much that look and feel.
Well, it's mostly the same map too.
Yes, and they did this whole thing with like sticking onto the walls. The 3D in the game is actually one of the only games where I played a lot of it in 3D.
It's necessary for a lot of the puzzles.
Yes, absolutely. And just the look, the way they designed the dungeons, it was kind of all around the 3D. It just reminds you, it's like the best fucking throwback to that old, tight-knit SNES Nintendo experience in terms of Zelda games.
And just these simple renting and buying the weapons and the items rather than finding them in the dungeon completely changes the game from this linear thing to this more explorative experience, and it makes rupees worthwhile again.
Yes.
You're like, no, fuck, not my wind rod.
So you can rent items and play the dungeons in whatever order you wanted, which was like incredibly innovative for, it's the first time you could do do that in a Zelda game. And also, I want to give a shout out to Hiromasa Shikata and Shiro Mori. They were the two that really kind of spearheaded the project, came up with that wall sticking convention, and sort of it was an on again, off again project that luckily made it to fruition. But it was because of them and Miyamoto seeing their work and Aonuma as well, they kind of push the project forward, and it's just really fantastic. The music's great, everything about it is great. It's that kind of Nintendo experience you come to love and cherish. So then, of course, after that, I just, because I'm a completionist, Triforce Heroes came out. It's a co-op game with 3 players in 3DS. It came out in October 2015.
You can put Link in fun outfits.
Yeah, he wears a dress. And, of course, the upcoming, if you're listening to this more right when it comes out, and probably if you're listening to it not too long after it comes out, it's already happened, Breath of the Wild, the very first Zelda open-world game coming out on the Wii U and the Switch, March 3rd, 2017. Bitches!
Ooh, I want to play that Skyrim-like gameplay.
See that mountain over there? You can fucking walk to it and hump it.
What?
Yeah. I mean, you can hump the screen. Zelda's not going to, or Link's not going to hump it.
Oh, thank God. The portable form factor of the Switch allows for easier humping.
What do you think? How do you feel about this?
They've worked a really long time on it.
Yes, they did.
It's, honestly, this is I'm really eager to see if, Nintendo actually can get enough, new talent and new voices to really redefine the series, because I feel like it could use a kick in the ass, especially after Skyward Sword. And I'm just hoping it's good. That's it. I'm hoping that the same spirit of innovation and ideas and collaboration that made the Zelda series great follows through with this one.
Yeah, what I'm scared
Also,
of...
I can't buy a fucking Switch. They're sold out.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just waving $300 in the air screaming, please take it.
You can come over and play with me on my Wii U. I'm very happy that I have a Wii U because I don't necessarily want to get a Switch immediately. So, and all I want it for is Breath of the Wild. So I will be playing the shit out of that on my Wii U. And I heard the performance differences aren't that big. It's really just some minor sound stuff, apparently, from what I've heard. Also, special shout outs. I forgot, we didn't really cover Minish Cap too much, but it's a game, again, that I missed. It's a game I plan to go back to. I actually looked on the 3DS today to see if it was available in the shop, and it's not. So I need to figure out how to get a hold of this game, because I've heard
that bird hat is so sassy. You're going to love it.
I heard it's fucking awesome, man. The bird hat turns you into a tiny little bug-sized man, and you can go around in the dungeons and see them from a different perspective. It's by the same team, Flagship, that made Oracle of Seasons and Ages, and I hear time and time again it's a fucking fantastic game. So there you have it, you fuckers. Every Zelda game covered in three parts. Arts.
Is there an echo in here?
No.
Okay.
Guys, this has been a wonderful journey through Hyrule and Lowrule and all those other weird...
Twilight.
Yeah.
The Dark World. The Sacred Realm.
Yeah. Epona. You know what I'm saying?
King of Red Lions.
King of Red Lions is a boat.
That sexy midget-bodied weird thing.
See, sexy is a weird word to describe it.
Sex-ish.
Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible journey. We'll be on to some new topic next week. And thank you for listening. Please rate and review us on iTunes if you haven't already.
It helps us out so listening right now can help us so much if you open up iTunes on your phone or on your computer and leave a review on The Wizard and the Bruiser.
And it gives me a happy, because I see all the nice things that you write about us, and it makes me feel good. So, yeah, go for it, man. And that's The Wizard and the Bruiser saying, yeah! I don't know how to end episodes.
Follow me at Best Jake Young.
Hold Knitter Toe on Twitch.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.